So welcome everyone. I'm Becky Carr. Some of you will know me. I do these webinars probably, well, try to once a month, but every sort of 6 weeks. And we go through different topics each time, usually DISC or FINX based information. So, we know that we get a lot of new people, and we've had people, very experienced consultants, managers and coaches with us for a long time too. So we try and pick the topics that are very specific for and helpful for that time. So welcome, and I'll be presenting this webinar today. And of course, you can see on the screen, it's how workplace assessments help increase employee retention. So like DISC and FINX, and things that you are able to get hold of in your accounts in the portal. There's no doubt that employee retention has a massive impact on the bottom line for all companies. Employee turnover is really high cost to businesses as they rehire for the role and induct new employees. It's really time consuming. We all know that. Excellent employee retention not only saves in time and money, it can also set you apart as an innovative company with great culture and a great brand. And, think about sort of like the likes of Google and Apple as an example. Let's face it, not only will this help attract top talent, it will also help you retain it. So things like DISC and FINX, the workplace assessments, help us to identify talent and understand their unique needs, such as their ideal environment and factors that may negatively impact on their stress levels. Literally things to avoid as well. So things like using DISC and FINX assessments, we can also learn how they're motivated, find keys to providing rewards and incentives, which is so important. They really are truly inspired to respond to the right reward program, as many of you would know. Okay, so before we delve into the assessment side of things, let's just have a quick reminder about why good employee retention actually matters in the first place, because it really does matter and it's important. Okay, so in this day of tough competition, the remote worker, interspersed teams, diverse teams, and the increasing competition to gain that top talent, organisations that tend to focus strongly on maximising their creative abilities of talent, things like understanding their staff's strengths and communications, implementing the right reward programs and introducing continued learning and development programs, tend to be ahead of the ballgame. So by engaging employees, job satisfaction is greatly increased and employee turnover is reduced. That makes sense. Look, any little quick look on Google, you can pretty much find the cost of everything like retention and rehiring to a company. And the cost of losing an employee can range from tens of thousands of dollars to 1.5 to 2 times the employee's annual salary. That's a bit scary. One of the biggest expenses companies take on in the face of employee turnover is the cost to retrain new employees. We all know that's pretty time consuming. So in a nutshell, employee retention is truly the art of holding on to your staff once you've hired them. I know in this year of COVID, many companies are restructuring, and they're struggling out there. So there are, really unfortunate circumstances that employees are being let go in this climate as well. So I'm very aware of that. But also in 2020, it's really important. In fact, it's more vital than ever to try and hold on to good staff, especially those that represent the company well. Why? Well, because companies have long woken up to the competitive advantage of being a people company. The old churn and burn approach to hiring often results in poor customer service and brand image out there. So why is retaining good staff such an issue? Well, because customers are placing increasing value on great service, things like smartphones. It's even easier to find a competitor or company to buy from ASAP. Or in the case of consumer goods, to avoid a shop altogether and order online. So often the only thing you've got going for you as a differentiator is your people. Thinking how easy it is really. You think about Uber. If you're not happy with the Uber service, you can choose in New Zealand, Ula, or just ring a cab. If you don't like either of those, you can go elsewhere. So at a click of a button. So having good people, retaining your employees is pretty vital. So what is it that drives people to leave in the first place? Look, most of us, including myself, have some stories in the past as to why we left or moved on from a company. And just having a look at some of the common issues, what they tend to be, what the key drivers of employees leaving are. I've picked 5. First of all, toxic culture. I mean a culture that doesn't fit its people, the type of corporate culture that sabotages morale, scares away new talent, and actively drives away its best people. Sadly, such a culture can emanate just from one person can do this. So the second one I'm looking at today is lack of purpose or meaning. People need their work to have meaning, some kind of purpose. Working with a shared purpose can increase motivation and performance, not to mention create more cohesive teams, of course. The purpose may be the product or service itself, but it can also be the enjoyment of working in a positive team. And I have to say, I've experienced that too, where sometimes the work could be repetitive and a bit menial, but the actual enjoyment of the team and the culture and the environment was the thing that kept me wanting to be there. The third one is overworked. Too much work, and subsequently with that, too much stress is also a major factor in an employee's decision to leave and find work elsewhere. Sadly, overwork isn't uncommon, and to this day, it's actually usually the norm. The fourth one of the key drivers would have to be boredom. The challenge has gone out of it. So employees grow bored with the work for a number of different reasons. They often feel that their capabilities are underused or their job lacks meaning. Boredom can set in. In some cases, bored employees are more stressed than overworked employees. It's something to dwell on. And finally, yes, we've all had this one at some point in our life, I'm sure. A bad boss. People don't leave their jobs, they say, they leave their managers. This one kind of goes without saying, but I kind of included it anyway because a bad boss is one of the most common causes of employee turnover. Okay, so like anything, there are companies that don't practice the art of retention. There are certainly companies that really, really try to implement the best practice too, and I really enjoyed researching that. I was interested to do some research around Apple's strategy and some of what they say works for them as well. So let's have a quick look. This is a very light version of their strategy, by the way, for those of you that have read books and have a bit more insight into this area. So Apple at one stage had an issue of shop staff churn. They implemented some specific ideals centering around decreasing this churn. In fact, they ended up by increasing their shop staff retention by 28% just last year in doing this. Apple actively says these aspects are what they introduced, and I've got them on the slide here. They must have a strong vision and have a leader who can communicates it and communicates it often. Be careful not to undervalue any individual. Stay in tune with the employee sentiment. Of course, DISC is the perfect tool for this exact area, to be able to sit with an employee and search out deeper issues before they even become an issue. Keep people informed. Like the good old coffee machine and water cooler in the past, social media can feed both positive and also into negative feelings or rumours in the absence of good communication. So transparency, keeping staff up to date, open communication channels, safety and diversity of opinions are all things that can feed into positive reinforcement and keeping employees informed and communicated with. Choose the right employees to begin with. Well, this is a big one. Apple puts massive emphasis on team and cultural fit and alignment with vision and mission of potential new hires than any other attribute. So skills are easier to train than attitudes. So their thing is choose the right employee. They put a lot into their recruitment and hiring programs. The last one is continually train and develop people. Just look at some of the tools that can help assess some specific areas to add development to them. So with training and development, Apple uses a lot of assessments. They use a lot of different assessments. They use a lot of different tools and information and types of training to keep their people going. But it was very interesting in researching this, what they use for recruitment and getting their employee recruitment right is a lot of assessments and science-backed information as well, keeping people informed, obviously through technology, but also informing them in the right way for who they are so they can listen and want to learn in the right way. So I guess I want to look first of all too at using the DISC assessments to improve job satisfaction. Okay, we get the picture and we understand that to get a better job satisfaction, we truly do need to understand our employees better. We must learn and understand about their unique qualities for them to have better job satisfaction so we can adapt ourselves for them. What are their unique needs? What are their unique wants, their strengths, their avoidance areas, motivators, rewards that they prefer? What are their preferred environments? What are their fears? What do they need in a manager? The list goes on. I could actually sit here all day telling you all the different things, but it sounds like a lot to learn, and you are actually right. But actually, that's why we use assessments like DISC and the FINKS assessments to give us information about our people in a way that, first of all, makes sense, but is actually usable to us. Just for my own personal use, just the DISC methodology alone and knowing about just the 4 main behavioural types is so helpful in understanding an employee, how they're interacting, how they act, their stress levels, etc. But if you can actually do an assessment as well, this yields the best knowledge of your employees because it can really get down to the unique traits. So first of all, I just wanted, today's more of a refresher and showing you all the different reports that you can use for job satisfaction, for understanding your staff better, for understanding yourself better. So sometimes these reports, people tend to focus on the DISC reports, which is great, but there's other reports in your account as well that you can use. So let's have a look. Recruiting the right fit, pretty important. Apple says it is, Google says it is, I say it is too. So even in my own consultancy, I have clients that still solely rely on the gut feeling and guessing during a face-to-face interview. And as you know, we do tend to have a bias for people that are a little bit more like ourselves. Why? Because it's easier to chat to them and they do their doing, like activities similar to ourselves too. So we tend to go, yeah, they're great, let's hire them. But it's not always what the job position requires or needs. While I love assessments in the recruitment and hiring steps though, I definitely do make sure that using assessments is not the only aspect I choose in finding the right fit. But it's one I give a lot of consideration to give me insights on specific aspects that might not be tangible in the interview process. So your recruitment strategy is going to be unique to your own company or yourself or your consultancy. But like many say, it should actually include a variety of tools like interviews, assessments, reference checking, etc., etc. So just making sure that you understand that as well. Then I use extended DISC in recruitment a lot. And here's some of the areas that I tend to use it for. Things like team fit, especially where are the gaps in the team and am I filling them with someone specifically because they need it? Or am I recruiting someone that is similar to the other people we've got because they've already proved that imprint works? Motivators and demotivators. What is it going to take for me to keep them motivated, or my managers, for example, to keep them motivated? What is going to potentially demotivate them about this new position if they come into it? What are their natural avoidance areas going to be? So those are the areas that more likely I would have to find some training or some sort of support in if they were to be hired. What are their pressure and stress points? Pretty important because these are some of the main factors with disengagement and lack of job satisfaction. Another big thing is, how are they going to prefer to be managed by the leader? Do they like a lot of sort of hands-on, good relationship, chatting, being able to make decisions with them? Or is this position going to be actually more autonomous, and the leader is not going to be able to give them what they need? That's pretty important to make sure that you have the right fit. It's not fair on the person. If you're hiring a person that likes to ask a lot of questions and verify information, etc., and this manager tends to be a lot more autonomous, then you might need to think about a way that they could interact better. What are their likely communication needs as well? All these types of things. I also look at their strengths and how that ties back to the actual position. Could we increase their scope in some way so that I can incorporate more of their strengths? Or do I have a lot of sort of demotivator parts in there and I could actually take parts of their job or position away? So, and the other thing is how others in the team might see them. This is important. Perspective is really important because it's other people's truth. Where they may need support in relationship to behaviours or challenges that they might potentially have with people. Are they going to be a little bit of what do we call a lone wolf, or are they going to be able to mix easily with other people? Honestly, I could sit here telling you a whole lot more, but this type of information can give me insights into how they might prefer to act, react. It also gives me insights to ask certain questions in the interview, actually. So sometimes by looking through their report, it prompts me to sort of ask them a bit more informative questions about specific areas. But furthermore, I can also look at how this new candidate will actually fit into the team and the design and the context of team. So I've just been talking about DISC assessment so far on this slide, but all of you, if you're trained, also have access to other types of reports, which adds even more context and information to the book that you would already have. So one of my favorite in the Finks is the Finks reasoning analysis. And it's a type of cognitive ability test that's really great in the recruitment stage as well. So we'll have a quick look at that. But I just wanted to remind you before I do go on to that, don't forget you have something called a research model. Now the research model is where you can, like the extended DISC assessment questionnaire can actually be amended by using what we call a research model. And that allows you to add tailored questions to the front of a behavioural report before they start doing the 24 questions that produce the actual report. So these are questions that enables you to ask further questions about their CV or work experience, open questions on specific situations. You can actually also induce multi-choice questions to help fine-tune all sorts of information. And we do that because so those of you that are using quite a few assessments in a project, you're able to actually ask some questions at the beginning, and it actually goes into the report, or it can be separate, either way, but it actually helps you shortlist, literally, or it helps you have that information at your fingertips. So don't forget, so many people don't know about the research model, but it can be used for all sorts of applications. Obviously, I've used it a couple of times in the past, actually, where I've wanted to know a little bit more verification about someone's training, how much training they've had, what kind of training, etc. they've had before I go further with them. So it can be adapted for all sorts. So don't forget, it is in your portal and can be added on to. It's up to you what questions you want to make it ask. Okay, back onto the main area. Okay, so I was saying to you before about lots of different tools and things like that, lots of different assessments that you can actually get hold of. Many companies, including Fortune 500 companies, right down to SMEs and smaller than that, tend to use a mix of assessments, especially when it comes to recruiting. I actually do this myself as well. As I said, I use the reasoning analysis. I tend to use that reasoning analysis purely because it gives me a slightly different cognitive test, and it gives me a behavioural test. So you can imagine the data it yields. But I especially use that reasoning analysis if it's a mid to senior position, because it does test things like, as you can see on the slide here, things like logical reasoning, social context, word association, all that type of thing. I will talk about that a little bit more too. Look, we don't literally have time today to do all of these on the screen. You know, there's quite a few here, but you can actually check them out if you want to on HR Profiling's website, and you can go on there and have a look. But each of these are pretty complementary to your DISC report. Like if you're using a DISC recruitment report, for example, then I use the reasoning test, as I say. They've got two different types of reports that give me different information. Just be careful. Of course, you don't want to overdo and exhaust the candidate with too many assessments. So choose a good balance of information and only aspects that are a priority in that position. So, you know, the cognitive feedback during the recruitment process can be really informative. But just a note, the new updated Fink's reasoning test, for example, it has now got 9 different tests inside it that you can choose from. So if you were to leave all 9 in, the poor candidate would be there for over nearly 2.5 hours trying to complete it. So let's not do that to them unless you're feeling mean. But instead, I'd probably choose 3 to 4 important aspects of that reasoning analysis to have feedback on, things that are a priority in that particular position. So for that, if you did 3 or 4 of these, which are from around about, on the slide here under the 360, mathematical, logical, social context, word, spatial, visual, numerical, verbal reasoning, abstract and logical reasoning, those you can choose from and actually click in your setup of the assessment itself and they will come out. So any issues with that, obviously check in with your master trainer or check in with HR Profiling and they can put you on the right field. Otherwise, check your manual if you have a manual first and give it a go, because trying to do it yourself, you learn more, obviously. Okay, so where DISC really shines, however, is the aspect of in the aspect of employee retention is getting to understand employees' individuality and then developing the right aspects to fit the job even better. So many times I've been asked to come into companies that have had some sort of development, but it's been so general that really half the employees don't actually relate to it, or they don't actually need that particular part for them, or it doesn't really matter to them. Of course, what happens then is they lose a sense of purpose and they don't have that why, they get bored and they literally check out. The challenge is gone. You know, all employees should have further learning and development. And we know that places like Apple are very forthright about that particular topic. But it's not just the employees learning, it's also the managers learning to lead, coach, and inspire their people too, but in the right way that is unique to the person. So this is where DISC assessments give massive amounts of self-awareness to both employees and managers in how they prefer to operate on a daily basis. You know, a DISC report gives insights, as I've mentioned time and time again, into things like preferred communication, how they like to be managed, things that demotivate them, their strengths, their development areas, team attributes, avoidance areas, team design, leadership challenges, how they like to learn decision making. Wow, I mean that's pretty powerful stuff. Imagine knowing all that and helping and understanding someone so they feel valued, so they have purpose, so they have good communication. I mean, it's not likely that they're going to be searching for a job elsewhere unless something major happens, because they really do have that sense of value and purpose and the right things anyway. So, you know, I personally make DISC I use DISC as part of my client's annual performance review. I say annual, but we do it biannually. You know, I guess for me it's really important that both managers and employees get to discuss things like the match in, you know, how are you feeling about using your strengths in the position? Is it enough? How can we improve the job scope to use more of your strengths and things that motivate you? What's demotivating you? Can you support them? Can we give you more support, or can we get rid of this demotivator altogether? Communication, how do they need to be communicated to with the managers or peers? Is it verbally, one-on-one? Is it group chats? How much detail, background, big picture facts or results do they like? Or in the annual review, we talk about all sorts of things like written communication so they can process it in a timely manner. I know this is really detailed stuff, but at the end of the day, each person is very unique in their needs, and that is the thing that's really creating job satisfaction and retention. Basically, we can improve things for them if there's communication. I have to tell you, using the report really does turn the review into a very unique and personal journey where both manager and employee have very clear expectations for the next 6 months or year, if you structure it that way. The employees value their reports and often use their assessments during the year as well to speak up and clarify something about themselves with others or their managers when they don't actually have the words for it. So this is great. I mean, they take it along and say, look, this is an aspect that I really need, or this is an aspect that's bothering me. Can we talk about it? They bring their report in as a bit of an objective, neutral ground, and they discuss it. So it's really a win-win towards job satisfaction on both parties. I'm just going to mention one more report as well, just as a bit of a reminder, and this has just recently popped up and helped in some personal employee retention with my clients as well. Full of reports today, this webinar, but it's really great to remind you. If you're looking to learn more about a sales rep or a sales team, then the sales competency report can actually be very insightful too. It's not at all disc-related, as it gives it gives insights into very specific focuses and current ability in critical sales mindsets and competency areas. Okay, so it doesn't give natural preferred behaviors, it gives ability at that time that they did it in a type of sales that they do. So, how does that help you? And you might be asking, why am I bringing this report up? Well, it's not just about the sales development. It's also about giving you insights into pinpointing specific areas of sales growth needed to help that employee. If you can help them grow them in areas that are unique to them, they will feel far more satisfied in learning those areas. They can relate to it a lot better. They can work smarter, and the outcome is that they tend to be more successful in that type of selling for them and their position in general. So this year I've had a lot of feedback recently from some bigger corporates that I've used these reports with. They let me know that the feedback and satisfaction was off the scale comparative to other programs that they've run in the past with more generalized rollout of topics. I have to say, wee little yeehaw from me. These reports gave me real aspects to work on that matched the type of selling they were doing. So the outcome was far smoother, accepted by them, and of course, budget fulfilling sales program for the actual client themselves. So just, I have to say, I personally knew a few of the reps were planning to leave, and I knew that from when we did our personal disc debriefs at the beginning of the program. But by the end of the program, these same reps felt reinvigorated to learn new things. They felt challenged. They felt valued and rewarded in the right way for them. So we looked at the big team and we looked at individuals and we looked at how those individuals could be rewarded and developed. I have to say I was pretty pleased with the results myself, as those 3 people are still in the company and 2 of them have now been promoted. Their contribution is actually incredible, and the knowledge that they have about their business is something that the company would not have wanted to lose, to be honest. So yes, big tick in job satisfaction there for many of the staff, and a big tick for the assessments used to actually bring out the right information in the first place. Okay, I don't want to go on too much, but the gist of today was getting you to reassess the use of your different reports. Obviously recruiting is so important to start the job satisfaction off in the right direction anyway. But with recruiting can come in several forms: interviews, reference checking, but assessments are very, very popular to use. They give you some really great science-backed information, cognitive ability, plus it gives you behavioral information and preferences and understanding about the person. The next one is, communication. Communication, especially on visions and values as well. So the Finks and DISC reports can really help in understanding the type of communication people need, the type of the way that the manager should be able to interact with their unique team members. Involving the team actively in development, what was a big one. When you have these reports, when you use assessments like Finks and DISC, they have their reports, so they become active in using it. Like that story I said to you, during the year, they actually bring their reports out, not only for the annual performance review, but actually during the year when they have issues or conflicts or good things, etc. They actually keep revisiting their reports and they look over them. They understand the motivators, they understand the strengths. The managers honestly look at their team members' reports all the time for tips and tricks and information about how they could coach them or manage them better. Don't forget, of course, soft skills coaching. You can take these reports and you can do these wonderful trainings around them, like what I do. The reports are a stepping stone that give you great data and information into all sorts of, employee satisfaction. But then taking them further and teaching them soft skills around coaching is a really ideal way to do it. The big thing, though, is take the time to learn about yourself and learn about individuals. For those of you that are managers that are listening, it's really important. Your rising stars, your top talent also need motivating and nurturing. Though they might be autonomous, they also need a certain amount of your time. So these reports can point those out. They can tell you how they like to have your time. And they're a really good discussion starter in general for job satisfaction. And as I say, if you can get job satisfaction from a employee, you've got employee retention in the hat, the art of employee retention done anyway. So I want to just let you know, take the time to look at your Finks portal, take the time to have a look at some of the different types of reports. Take the time when you're coming to recruiting and developing, whether it be sales or leadership, to look at the type of assessments that you may need to use. The data is very different for all sorts of reports, but you have them all in one portal, which is pretty amazing. So I'm going to leave it there, but if you have any questions, of course, the lovely staff at HR Profiling Solutions can help you with any of the setup or information manuals or templates, etc., needed to operate a couple of these reports. Don't forget, I know I harp on about the 360 all the time, but that's wonderful feedback for leadership as well. If you're new to all of this, and a lot of the information I'm telling you tends to be like, what is she talking about? Go back and just start with your DISC report. The DISC report gives you so much information about people. The more information you know and can utilize with people, the more they feel heard and valued. And that enters into job satisfaction big time. Right, I'm going to leave you with that, and I hope that you revisit everything. And if you need to ask me questions, of course, shoot some through. I'm very happy to help. Thanks for joining me. I love that you're here live because it encourages me every month to do a better job. Thanks, everyone. Bye.